Hello guys, welcome to RX Tutorials. In this video we are going to learn how to build this nice election dashboard. This dashboard is intended for educational purposes, and then figures reported in this dashboard might not even be accurate. So let's take a look at the dashboard. In the front pane of the dashboard, we have the total votes won by the Democrats candidates, that's Biden, and that of Mr. Trump for the Republicans. We have the total electoral votes also won by Biden and that of Trump as well. When we scroll down, there's a presidential race map where we have indicated for each state which party won. So we know that the Democrats' color is blue and that of the Republican color is red. So we've indicated for each map which party won for each state. When we scroll down to the last part of the dashboard, we have the table, which is the state results list, which contains all the states, the popular votes won by both the Democrats and the Republicans. So, to be able to analyze this, we built this through pivot tables and as well as Power Query. So in this table, we can see the margin of votes for each of the states and the percentage margin. So let's go to a new workbook and then we start building something similar like that. In this workbook, we have the years, the state, the popular votes won by Democrats and the Republicans, the projected winner for each state, and the electoral vote for each state. So first of all, we will start by making this a table. So to make this a table, we press Ctrl T. So click on anywhere within the table and then press Ctrl T. So Excel highlights our table range. So we have our table range, and that is correct. My table has headers as well. So our table has been converted. So we can name our table here. So let's say election data table. So we have named our table. Let's build our first chart. So we go to insert pivot tables. So Excel automatically identifies our table. So we put this in a new worksheet. So first of all, for the chart, we have a stacked bar column and then we have a map chart, a field map chart. We can first of all build a stacked bar and then we move on to the field map. So to build this, we look at our fields for the table, and then in this one we want the Democrats and the Republicans. We want the electoral votes. So electoral votes is going to be the sum of our values. So we have our 538 electoral votes to be won, and then we want to divide this. We want to see for each electoral vote for Democrats and that of Republicans as well. So we have our electoral votes. That's our total electoral votes. So to find the electoral votes for Democrats and for the Republican as well, we put in our winner column or field. So we have the electoral votes for both Democrats and the Republican. Let's insert our chart. We go to insert and then we want a stacked bar chart. But in this case, we go to select data and then we switch the rows. So we have a stacked bar. Let's resize our stacked bar chart. We can of course remove the legend. Let's take out the axis and then we hide all our field buttons. Let me resize this. So here we go. We have our first chart here. So that's our first chart. Let's move on to our second chart. Let's name this. That's our bar chart. Let's move on to our second chart. We go to the data table, go to insert, we insert a pivot table. But in this case, we'll add this to the data model because we want to write a measure. So our pivot table fields open up. So we want to find the state. For each state, we want to find the winner because we want to build our map chart for each state and the winner. So when we drag the winner field to the value section, it's set up to take in only values. So when you go to the value field settings, you see it only takes the sum, the count, the average, all these functions which are values sections. But we want to know for each state, we want to know which which party won for each state. That is either the Democrat or the Republican. So then we have to write a measure for this. So let's take off this, remove this. And then because we have added this to our data model, let me first of all change this. So this is the state. Because we have added this to our data model, we can go to our Power Pivot, go to measures, and then we write a new measure. In this measure, we will say that let's make a projected winner. So we are going to use the concatenate function, concatenate x, and then in the concatenate function, we have the table, that is the syntax of the function. The first argument is the table, and our table is this. That's the election data. So just write our election data, and then we move on to the second argument. The second argument is our expression. What do we want to put in the expression? We want the winner section of the expression. So in that case, we want this. That is the winner field or the column. And then what is going to be our delimiter? Our delimiter, what we are going to separate these values because it's going to join them or it's going to concatenate them. So we're going to separate this by a comma. So we have to put this in double quotes since it's a string. And then we close this. We can check our formula to see if this is correct. So we check Excel says there's no errors in the formula. So we add this. So we see that we have our test, that is the projected winner for each state. And because in the grand total it adds up all which is separated by the delimiter, that is the comma that we specified in our measure. So I'll take off the grand total. So I have my states, and for each state I have my projected winner. And then I'll try to insert my map. So you see that when I try to insert the map, Excel says that I cannot create this chart type with the data type inside a pivot table. So then I would have to, let me take off this. So I would have to copy, Control C to copy, and then paste this as values. Let me insert a map here. So let's highlight this, go to insert, and then let's insert a field map here. So now we have our field map here. But currently our field map is set up to take up these values, which is not part of the pivot table. So we'll have to redirect our values to the pivot table. So to redirect our values to the pivot table, we would have to click on the chart, go to select data, and the select data, there's a pop-up message, and then which gives our chart range. So we would have to change our chart range. So currently it's set at D and E, then we'll have to change our chart range to A and B. So this is our A, then this is B, so that's where we have our pivot table. So say okay, then currently our map is pointing to our pivot table, so that is correct. We can take off this, delete this. So we have our second chart. So as you can see, we have two categories, that is a Republican and a Democrat. We'd have to change the colors. You know that for the Republicans, the color setting is red. So we can go here and then we can choose any red color that we want, and then the Democrat is blue, so we can go to the format. Let's choose this as well. So we have our Republican Democrat showing for each. We can turn on the data labels. So when we turn on the data labels, we see that we have for each state we have which party won. So we have our two charts, so we can start building our dashboard. So first of all, let's go to the view. Let's turn off our grid lines. So let's build the header of our dashboard. So first of all, I'll highlight this, change the fill color to this, and then I'll insert a text box to write my header. Let me increase the font. Let's center this. Select the text box. Press Ctrl 1 to open the format shape pane. Let's set the fill to no fill and the line to no line. So we have this. Let me change this, the shape format, the text fill to this color, and the text outline, yeah, let me change it to black to give it that glowing effect. Let me insert the logo, resize this. So first of all, let's insert the images of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Let's do some resizing to make it a little bit uniform. You can as well check with the shape, the height. You can as well change the height and the width for it to be uniform. But so I have my pictures here of both gentlemen. So let's insert a text box. And then center this. Let me make this. Let me increase the font. Go to the shape format. In the text fill, let's change it to this blue. Let's make it bold. Let's increase this. Let's copy the text box and repeat the same for Mr. Trump. But let's change the fill for Trump. Shape format, go to the text fill. Let's change it to this red. Let's press Ctrl 1. Select the text box, press Ctrl 1. Let's remove the fill and the line. We can do the same for the second one. Yeah. So let's take a look at, so we've done almost the first part. We can bring in our charts. We will leave this for the last. We can bring in our charts. Let's go to our chart page. Copy the chart and paste it here. Let's resize this. Let's increase this. Trying to fit this here. Select the chart, go to Control 1, press Control 1, we take off the fill, the line. It's too big. Let's resize it again. This as well. Yeah. And then we can insert the electoral vote. Set a text box. And then we do a cell referencing. So we can go to this chart. Let's move this here. Let me do a cell referencing here for Democrat and that for the Republicans. Insert our text box here. Okay, let's go back. So with the text box selected, let's do a cell referencing. Let's reference this cell to display the total electoral vote for Biden. We can copy this and paste it. Let's change the cell reference for this to reflect that of Mr. Trump. So we have both figures here, and then we can just drag this. Let me change the font to white, make it bold, increase this to 18. Let's reposition this. You can do the same for this. You can simply drag this. Let's position it here. Change it to white. Make it bold. Try to reposition this. Yeah, it's okay. Let's insert another text box. Put it here. With that, we can just write Democrat. Change the text fill to blue to reflect that of the Democrat. Make it bold. You can just copy and then repeat the same thing for Mr. Trump. Let me resize this. Let's change the shape format to reflect that of, make it bold. Let's remove the line and fill. Same for here. So our dashboard is gradually shaping up. So next we go to, let's check our original dashboard. That's the presidential race. So we can simply type in let's make it bold. So let's copy our chart, that's our map chart, and paste it on our dashboard. Let's increase this. Okay, let's resize it a little bit. So let's take out the fill and the line. And then in this last part, we go to the table. That is the state results list. So in this, we have to build it. We want to insert a pivot table here. So we can go to insert, go to pivot table. We are going to use that of the data model because we've added this to the data model. So with this pivot table, we want to see the state. We look at the original, it has a state, the popular votes for both Democrats for each state and the Republicans, as well as the projected winner. So we want to see that of Democrats and we want to see that of the Republicans. And then we want to, for each state, we want to know who is the winner, so we'll insert the measure that we did previously. We can remove the total, the grand total. So we have 4 fields here, and then in the fifth and the sixth, we have to calculate the margin and also the percentage margin. So for the margin, we can just use a simple formula, the maximum formula. So we say maximum of these two minus the minimum of the same values. So we have our percentage margin. Let's highlight this and same as here. So in our last part, we have to calculate the percentage margin. We have the margin now. So our percentage margin will be the maximum of this divided by the sum of this. So let's take 1% of this because we have other parties as well. And in this case, the results here is for Democrats and Republicans. So we can add, we can just subtract 0.1 from this. Let's change it to percentage. So this one will be the margin, and here will be the percentage margin. So our table is ready. We can highlight our pivot table, go to the design, and then we can choose the one without any colors. You can set all this as a table. let's choose a different color. Let's make it bold. So we have our table, and our table shows us the popular votes for each state, also the projected winner, the margin of votes, and the percentage margin. But I would want to show, if you just look at the raw data like this, if I choose a state, or if I see a state, automatically I would want to see who won the state. So I want to apply a conditional formatting that will change it to the traditional colors of the Republican and the Democrats. So I'll apply a conditional formatting on this table. So to apply a conditional formatting, I would have to highlight the cells or the columns where I want to apply a conditional formatting. I wouldn't want to start applying a conditional formatting from here or here because it will make my work crowded or a little clustered. So I'll start from here, from the projected winner. So I'll highlight these three fields or columns that I want to apply a conditional formatting. Go to the conditional formatting pane here, go to a new row, and then with this new row, I'll use a formula to determine which cells to format. So with this, I want to set this formula to be equal to this cell should be equal to, so I'll put it in a double quote, to be equal to Republican. Then because I would want to format these three fields, I would have to take off this $sign. Then with the format, I want to set this to the traditional color of the Republican, which is red. So we have so as you can see, for all the data that we have Republicans, it has been highlighted with the specified color that I set in my conditional formatting. So I would want to do the same. I'll repeat the same for this one. For the Democrat as well, I go to conditional formatting, and then I'll do a new row as well. And with this new row, I want to set this cell to be equal to Democrat. Then I'll take off this $sign, format this, use this color. So we have all our cells formatted with this color. I'd want to change this to a white text so as to make it more visible. So let's expand this a little bit. So let's apply some formatting here. Make it bold. So as you can see, all our cells have been formatted from this field onwards. Wherever we have Republican, it has been formatted to red, and then Democrat has been formatted to blue. So let's go up and let's do some little changes. I'll have to change this to Republican, and then you can either insert a short title or just remove it. So we are almost done. Let's take a look at the original dashboard. So it's left with the top pane, this information or these cards. So to insert this, I'll go to insert shapes, and I'll insert this shape. With this, I would have to insert a text box, and this text box, I want to read it or display information of the popular, the total votes, and the number of states won. So I go back here, and with this, I would have to build another pivot table, and this pivot table, so with this, I can just do a cell referencing here, and I'll reference this on the dashboard. Let's insert a text box, and with the text box selected, I'll go to the formula bar and do a reference of this. We can insert another one, or just copy. We have to change this. This is C. So with this selected, we can just change this to C to reference the total votes for the Republicans. So we can just drag this here, just copy this, can just drag this here. You can Control 1 to open the format pane, take off the fill and the line, make this white, make it bold, increase the font. Let's do the same for the Republican. So here will be C, and we've even already done it. No worries. We can apply the same formatting here. So that's the total popular votes. Let's align this. Let's go to insert pictures, and then we can insert our map. Let's turn this round. Let's resize this. You can also insert our election icon. You can do the same for here. So we are almost done. Let's do a cell referencing for the number of states won. So to do this, we can build another pivot table. And with this pivot table, let's choose the winner field as our row, and with our values, we choose the state. So we have a number of the count of the states for Democrats. So the Democrats won 26 states and the Republicans won 25. Then we can do a cell referencing of this. So let's do a common cell referencing. Go back to our dashboard, insert a text box, and reference this value. For the Democrats, you can just copy this and paste it here. Change this, that is 26, that is H5. So you can just copy this one and paste it here as well. Let's open up the format pane, remove the fill and the line for this and the same as this. Change it to white, make it a little bigger. Let's do the same for here. So guys, we are almost done. Let's change this. Let's change this to the traditional color of the Republicans. So we are done. So we can just insert our headers here. Popular votes. Just reposition this. So we can select this and paste it here. We can also do the same for this. Change the text. State 1. Just copy and paste it here. So as you can see, we are done. We check the original dashboard. We've completed almost all the features. You can put in your own header here. This is the projected results. Just increase. So guys, here you have it. This amazing dashboard. So these are cards displaying all the information that's necessary. We have our electoral votes here, our presidential race map showing all the states won by both parties, our conditional formatting. So we've learned tons of things. So if you want to learn new things every single day, subscribe to my channel. Just hit the like button and then share it to your friends. Subscribe and then see you in the next amazing video. Bye.